We are celebrating the greatest role models on the peninsula tonight, and we're so happy that our winners are here and past winners are here. It's a great occasion. We have many acknowledgments to make tonight, so please hold your applause while we thank the people who've played a key role for us this evening. Want to, in particular, thank the San Mateo County Events Center team, Chris Carpenter, General Manager, and Ronnie Tomput, who's here tonight, the number 2 man. Thank you, Ronnie. Okay, hold your applause. Thank you. We have a lot of people. We want to thank our platinum sponsor for this evening, First National Bank. They've supported the event for years, and we appreciate that. Our media sponsor, the Mercury News, San Mateo County Times. And our corporate table sponsors. For those of you who are the winners or in the world of athletics, these corporate table sponsors have nothing to do with athletics. They just want to support sports in San Mateo County and Palo Alto, and we so appreciate their support. Hyatt San Francisco Airport, Sofitel San Francisco Bay, San Francisco International Airport, and the San Mateo County Events Center. We want to thank all of them for their support. We have more thank yous. We want to thank Bob Wilmot from Stanford Athletics and Fred Baer from College of San Mateo, both of whom provided tickets to their opening football games to all of you tonight. We want to thank Skyline College for a sponsorship this evening. We want to thank the catering team here, Robert Carney, Colby Amar, and event manager Erminia Martinez, who've been extraordinary. Jim Fetter with the Jockey Club. I know Jim's here and helped us loop all of the slideshow through for you tonight. Mitch Posto from the San Mateo County History Museum is here. Mitch, do you want to wave? Yeah, he's cheering for himself. The museum is where the duplicate plaques will be displayed for all the winners, so you'll be able to go to the museum and have your friends go in and see your plaques displayed. Kathy and Joe from Have a Party Pros, the Peninsula TV team, Mark Naismith is here, the CEO. The show will be aired several times over a period of a month, and you will get a link to in your envelopes on your table, you'll find information about the channels, how to find it, where to find out when it will be aired. For the winners, you're also able to order CDs from Peninsula TV if you want to give them to your friends or relatives or send them out with your Christmas cards. I'd like to acknowledge our Convention and Visitors Bureau board members who are here in attendance tonight. We thank them for their support. Jeff Bass with Hiller Aviation Museum, Chris Carpenter, San Mateo County Events Center, Dana Dahl with the Beach House, Half Moon Bay, John Hutar, Sofitel San Francisco Bay, Mitch Postal, San Mateo County History Museum, and Tom Scaramolino from the Westin and the Aloft. We thank you for all of your support. We'd like to acknowledge Joe Fazio with the Office of Assemblyman Kevin Mullen. You want to give a wave, Joe? There you go. The winners tonight will receive, we've bundled them. We're not going to have you listen to multiple resolutions tonight, but you will receive proclamations from Congress, the State Senate, the State Assembly, the county, and various city councils, all suitable for framing. We'd like to acknowledge some of the past inductees in the audience tonight, so please stand when I call your name, and please hold your applause. Fred Baer. Will Cahill. I know he's here. There we go. Jim Liggett. Pat Lovell. It is Lovell, not Lavelle, I hope. Would someone call it out next? There. Thank you. Joe Marvin. And Rolf Buzz Williams. Let's give them all a big round of applause for coming supporting the current year's inductees. Above all, I'd like to thank our Bureau team. An event like this is very complicated. It has a lot of moving parts. There's an enormous amount of detail. Jessica Campbell, our Convention Services Manager, and Amélie Gissanger, our French intern, have done a phenomenal amount of work and done a great job on tonight's event. I want to thank them personally for all of their efforts, as well as Laura Garrett, our Sports Sales Manager, who's been running around taking pictures. Laura's job is to recruit sporting events into San Mateo County. And we do that because we want to keep sports alive and we support them, and to fill our hotel rooms, which is what we're all about. So if you see the blonde, there she is, I was looking for you. If you had a lead for an event, if you know of a competition we might go after, she's the person. So please let her know. We love, the more sporting events, the better. The more championships we can bring into San Mateo County and Palo Alto, the better off we are. There you go. That's right. And finally, we'd like to explain what's happened with the history of this event. The event began in 1989. It was started by John Horgan, who was with the San Mateo County Times. It was an annual event honoring the best in San Mateo County, and after 2008, the event was no more. The San Mateo County Times wasn't able to do it, and it broke our hearts. It broke my heart personally that the event had stopped because there were so many amazing athletes and coaches in the county. So in 2011, our Convention and Visitors Bureau talked to John, and we said, what do you think about resurrecting the event and honoring the people who are so worthy? And John was all for it. So we resurrected the event. We're thrilled to be doing it. We're going to keep doing it. And just so you know, for the winners tonight, we have 10 winners. We've asked them all to limit their acceptance speeches to 3 minutes. And Joe is going to do it Academy Award style. When they get to the 3-minute mark, you're going to hear a little music, and they'll know the 3 minutes are up. One final item. At the end of tonight's proceedings, we will do a group photograph of all the winners over where you see the 4 chairs, so please head over there. Following the photograph of the winners that will be taken by Laura Garrett, we will take a photograph of all of this year's inductees with the past year's inductees who are present here tonight. We want to keep it so we have the slideshows for the next year or two. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce my longtime friend and the creator, the founder of the San Mateo County Sports Hall of Fame, now the Peninsula Sports Hall of Fame, John Horgan.
Right. Thanks, Ann. It's always good to be back. This is the 24th year. Next year will be a quarter of a century. Amazing. So far, there are 240 people, coaches, athletes, administrators in the current Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame is located at the San Mateo County History Museum in downtown Redwood City. If you ever get a chance, you might want to check it out. It's quite nice. Now, unfortunately, this past year has been a little difficult. We've lost some folks who were very helpful, very vital in the Hall of Fame. 2 inductees have passed away, Jim Fregosi and Jim Soden. 2 members of the selection committee, Jack Russell and Jim Gallagher, Jim very recently, and Frank Firpo, who was a longtime participant in this particular event. So let's have a brief moment of silence for those fine 5 folks in their memory. Thank you. As you know, newspapers have been in some trouble in the last 15 years. The internet has been a gigantic thorn in newspapers' sides, and that's one of the reasons that the San Mateo County Times had to stop sponsoring it for several years. Finances had become a serious problem. And just for the heck of it, I compiled a very short list of newspaper headlines, and it shows you one more reason why newspapers have had some problems lately. So these are actual headlines. None of them appeared in the Mercury News. None of them appeared in the San Mateo Times, to my knowledge. But here are just a couple that I found interesting. Homicide victims rarely talk to police. Man with 8 DUIs blames a drinking problem. Here's a good one. Starvation can lead to health problems. And then the best one might be miracle cure kills 5th patient. So with that, let's get the show on the road with our first inductee, Jim Gorin of Sequoia High School. Now, Jim is a product of a high school that after World War II, and even before, became one of the dominant public high schools in California. Jim's area of expertise was swimming and water polo. He's an Olympic coach, and at Stanford, he coached 26 swimmers who earned Olympic medals. Now that, to me, that's incredible. That means that Jim, at the height of his coaching powers, was an integral part of the United States swimming program. And as you all know, the United States for a very long time has been the #1 swimming nation in the world. So I'd like to give you Jim Gorin right here. Jim, take it away.
Thank you, John. Well, this is a tremendous honor for me to be included with so many of my friends and athletes and coaches who are already in this Hall of Fame. It's a great honor to join them today. And I wanted to thank many people for this opportunity for me. I think I'm going to start out with my mother and father and my brother Bob. We grew up in San Francisco, out in the fog, and my brother got asthma. My mother and father decided to move out of San Francisco down to climate best by government test. We moved to Redwood City, which was so fortunate for me because that meant Sequoia High School. Sequoia High School in those days, and that was like 1946, the physical education department was run and so well administered by Frank Griffin. If you're not aware of Frank Griffin just had developed this program that was copied throughout the country, not to the extent that he did it, but we had marvelous teams. Just in my year and right around my year, we had 3 Olympians just from my class, Don Harper in diving and Jack Daniels in pentathlon and myself. Art Lambert, who was a couple of years later, was an Olympic coach. My brother Bob was in charge of the Olympic water polo venue in 1984. Art Lambert, I guess I already mentioned. Well, I have to thank my coaches that I had, Clyde Devine, who's a member of this body in the Hall of Fame also. Clyde was a great coach for me, and I owe him a lot for getting me along in swimming. If I'd stayed in San Francisco, I probably would have ended up playing baseball and football, but my eyes were so bad I hardly got a chance to play down here. Ken Biscacci and Luke Argella let me play for 2 years, but I had the different kind of jersey on in the team pictures, and I figured it's time for me to switch to water polo. So I did, and the same thing happened in baseball. Hal Dimmick was my coach, and he also gave me a shirt that said Indians instead of Sequoia, so I went out for swimming, and those were 2 great choices on my part. Well, I went from Sequoia to Stanford and had a really great career at Stanford. Following that, I kept playing water polo. Following graduation from Stanford, went to the Olympics in 1956 and played with some great players from the Peninsula. These guys who played with me in the late 50s were all from Sequoia High School and Menlo Atherton High School, and they've become my friends and have been my friends ever since, so I owe them a great deal for this. They supported me during those years when we were playing so great, winning national championships with the Olympic Club. I went to Stanford Law School, but in the middle of that, I did go to the Olympics, and when I graduated, I went into the Attorney General's office. I got a call a couple of years after I started that to come and take the job at Stanford. Well, I hadn't really intended to be coaching, but it seemed like such a great idea. I hear the music. I want to tell you about a couple of more great Peninsula athletes, though, that played for me or that swam for me. We won the national championship at Stanford, the first one in swimming ever at Stanford. And on one of the relay teams that had to win or had to get third place in the final event of the NCAA tournament, I had Dick Roth, Mike Wall, Pete Siebert, and Greg Buckingham, all Peninsula kids. We broke the American record by 8.4 seconds. I don't think that's ever been done in any other sport. Those guys really wanted to win, and I owe them the fact that I'm standing up here today. So, one other great thing that happened to me in coming from San Francisco to Sequoia, I met my lovely wife, Joan. We started dating when we were seniors, and tomorrow we will have been married 60 years. So. So thank you to all of you, and congratulations to the other nominees tonight. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just for your information, the county fair, each year the county fair moves some of its events to different locations. It's all very scientific, I'm sure, but for the first time in the history of this event, we are right next door to the pig races. And as we speak, tomorrow morning's breakfast is rounding the turn. I noticed a number of small children racing to see it. Our next inductee is Jennifer Bloom CREININ from ARAGON High School. Now, gymnastics in San Mateo County is a sport that is not played, it is not participated in at every high school. But ARAGON and some other schools have maintained programs. And when Jennifer was there, when Jennifer was at ARAGON in the 1980s, she was unbeaten in the Peninsula Athletic League. She went to Stanford, she participated there. She was all academic at Stanford. And it's too bad because gymnastics is a big deal during Olympic years. In fact, it's one of the most popular sports on television, but it's only every 4 years. So people like Jennifer and the kids who are doing it today are dedicated, they are extremely athletic, and they don't get quite enough of the respect that they deserve in the whole athletic milieu in the United States. But I think we all appreciate what you did, and you can tell us a little bit about it. Jennifer.
Thank you, John. Good evening. I first want to say that it is truly an honor to be included in such a select group of athletes and coaches, and I'm humbled to be standing here today. When I started gymnastics at the age of 5, just across the railroad tracks from here, I thought it was fun. As a youth, I gradually gave up all of my other activities because I liked gymnastics the best, and it came very naturally to me. I have to thank my parents for recognizing my talent and allowing me to pursue it. Now that I'm a parent myself, I understand the sacrifices they made to enable me to develop that talent, especially at a time when high-level athletics was uncommon amongst children. I am very lucky because they supported me through my good and bad workouts, frustrating and successful coaches, and losing and winning meets. By the age of 13, I had placed 5th at Class 1 Nationals and had qualified for Elite, the Olympic level of competition. Despite these accomplishments, it became evident that I needed to make a change. I either needed to find a new coaching team or give up the sport. My parents counseled me and guided me with that decision while assuring me that the decision was mine to make and that they would support whatever I chose, even if it included moving out of town, a significant commute, or boarding at a gymnastics factory located outside of the Bay Area. Until ultimately, I decided that I wanted to live a normal teenage life, and I walked away from the sport. That is, until I met George Wilcox, the Aragon High School gymnastics coach, who is here with us tonight. I want to thank Mr. Wilcox for reigniting my love of the sport and for reminding me that not only could gymnastics be fun again, but also that I had a special talent. His encouragement was the reason that I performed so well in high school and enjoyed a successful college run. Competing at Stanford for 4 years was one of the most exciting and rewarding things that I have done in my life. When I started there as a freshman, I didn't know if I was going to make an impact on the team because it had been a long time since I had competed at such a high level. Not only did my scores contribute in almost every meet in which I competed, but by the time I was a senior, I was winning meets and breaking school records. Representing the Cardinal in intercollegiate athletics is a privilege that few people have, and I am proud and honored to have been one of them. I want to thank my parents for all the sacrifices they made and for listening to my tears and for celebrating my successes throughout my career. I also want to thank my brothers for accepting the lifestyle I forced upon them and never complaining or blaming me. I want to thank all of my coaches throughout the years for teaching me about the greatest sport ever and for helping me overcome my fears on a daily basis. Lastly, I want to thank my husband for his support and love in my final years of gymnastics and for my children for being here today to share this honor with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next inductee is from Westmoor High School, Brett Barron. Brett is a judo coach and a former outstanding world-class judo athlete. One of his accomplishments that rings the most, really, is he was the coach of the U.S. Olympic judo team in 2004. Now, that's a big deal. It's interesting tonight that we have more than one person who is associated with the Olympics. That gives you one more indication of the depth of excellence along the peninsula. Brett, congratulations.
Thank you, John. I would first like to also congratulate all the inductees tonight. You know, obviously I'm extremely grateful for this amazing honor. I've lived in the peninsula all my life, and to come here to be recognized with such an accomplished group of athletes and coaches is something that I'm just extremely grateful for. You know, the question is, why judo? The short answer is I was a hyper kid growing up. My parents were looking for something that would zap my energy. It was somewhat of an individual sport, and you're held accountable to your actions. Unlike team sports, you could have a bad day, and as long as your teammates did well, you could still come away with a win because your teammates were playing well. With judo, you're just out there against an opponent, so you're held accountable to everything that you did in that match, so you can't blame anybody but yourself. You know, I retired from competition 27 years ago after the '84 Olympics. In fact, I tried out for the '88 team, was unsuccessful. I'm not going to lie, it was an amazing experience. As somebody born and raised in California, it was one of the best experiences of my life. For me, one of the best parts of the games for me was to be able to share, and two of my teammates able to achieve medals in their divisions, Ed Liddy and Bob Berlin. We were all close friends and had traveled and trained together for years, so getting to watch them fight for a medal was something we always dreamed of. Ironically, we were the Olympic team coaches for the Athens Olympics in 2004, 20 years later. So it was quite an accomplishment. As for my outcome at the Olympics, I dislocated my thumb in the third round of competition. And the guy that I dislocated my thumb against was the odds-on favorite to win the medal. Although I'd fought well against him in other tournaments overseas, he really was a better athlete. He won our match that day, and every once in a while, I will be introduced to somebody, whether it's in business or a friend, and they will recognize my name, and they will say, if you didn't dislocate your thumb, you would have been in the medal contention, right? And the thing about combat sports is that you never know what's going to happen. The best guy doesn't always win, but on paper, that doesn't really matter. And if you look at the statistics, the athletes that were on the podium that day, Great Britain, France, Romania, and Germany, they were the ones that were expected to be there. So I'm still grateful that I was able to at least give it my best chance. One of the most important people in my life will always be my coach, Willie Cahill, and he was introduced earlier tonight. Willie was my coach in 1984. He not only was my coach then, he coached several national and world teams for years to come. He coached athletes in both Olympic medals and Paralympic medals. And he just loves the sport. He loves helping people. If you go to his dojo, Cahill's Judo Academy, you will see that he's willing to give anybody the shirt off his back. You can show up any afternoon in his program, and on any given day, you will find 50 to 75 kids on his mat. And knowing Willie, 30% of those kids cannot afford to pay their dues, and that's just the way Willie is. So with that being said, Willie, this award goes to you as well. Thank you.
Brett said that 3 minutes is tough. He's right, it is. But our goal is always to get you out by the 7th inning of the Giants game. By the way, the last time Matt Cain pitched on this particular evening, he pitched a perfect game. So we're doing something right. It's not just the pig races. Archie Milton from Sequoia High School. Now, boxing used to be a sport that high school boys participated in physical education classes. Not every high school had it, but a lot of them did. Now, can you imagine in today's world, any high school allowing boxing on their campuses? It's probably not going to happen. So back in those days, in the 40s and 50s and early 60s, boxing was part of many physical education programs for boys, self-defense. And Archie Milton became a national champion at San Jose State, and he came that close to being an Olympian as well. So he may have a story or two for us. Archie Milton.
Well, good evening, everyone. And I want you to know this is going to be short, sweet, and snappy because the speakers before me, they ran over time. And I know that we're running behind time, so I'm just going to, make this short, sweet, and snappy. And I would like to say this. I am very grateful to the people that thought of all this, to the people that put in the work and the time to bring it, and for those that brought me back before podium. And, I thought I was kind of put on the shelf there until I got the call, and I enjoyed it. Little story, how I got into boxing. Actually, I preferred wrestling. But then we had this guy at my high school, I think his name was Pat Lovell, and someone said, I don't think you want to wrestle, Archie, because this guy is real mean. So I said, well, maybe I'll try boxing. And that's the joke, right? But wrestling was my sport, and I was in the wrestling room at San Jose State one day when a gentleman from Stanford came up to work out with the San Jose State's heavyweight. Of course, Julie Menendez said, nah, we're not going to do that because they're going to meet later on. And we had been talking, Julie and I, and he said, there's a guy over there in the wrestling room that he can use for a punching bag. And long story short, I went over, boxed with the guy. Next thing I knew, Julie was standing by the ring with a pair of shoes and a cup and a jump rope. And he said, you're not wrestling anymore, you're going to be on the boxing team. And that's a true story. That's actually how that happened. And I went on to really enjoy the sport, and I must admit that I never really dreamed of being heavyweight champ of colleges, to say nothing about the world, but I did enjoy the sport, and I had a great coach in Julie Menendez, and he passed, I think, last year sometime, and that was really too bad. It was loss of a great person. And thank you very much for having me here. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to speak with you about it and tell a little bit of my history and boxing. Thank you.
The next inductee is from Hillsdale High School, Valerie Fleming. Now, when she speaks, we need to find out exactly how she went from track and field to bobsled, especially bobsled. You grew up in Foster City, right? I don't recall snow ever falling in Foster City, but we're going to find out. It's important for everybody to know that she is a world-class bobsledder. She's a brake woman on a two-person team. She's an Olympian, has a silver medal, she and her partner. She's a big-time world-class athlete coming out of Foster City. Valerie Fleming.
I'd like to congratulate everybody else that has also been inducted tonight. It's an honor and a privilege to be part of the class of 2014. Like we were talking about, how would I get into bobsled? Growing up, my parents were huge Olympic fans. It was a big thing. We would watch the summer games, winter games. All I can remember is wanting to be part of the Olympics. Never did I ever think it would be the Winter Olympics. I was a track athlete, sprinter, but I did run against Marion Jones. She was a year ahead of me, not in the same class at all. So I figured I need to probably change events. I was a sprinter at Hillsdale, then I went on to Santa Barbara, ran track there. Then actually in the transition, I met a coach and who ended up being a training partner of mine who told me I should try javelin, and I thought, no, I'm going off to college. I'm gonna be a sprinter. I'm not gonna focus on that. And then sprinting didn't pan out, so I thought, well, okay, I'll give javelin a shot. Graduated from Santa Barbara, came back, trained at CSM for a few years. Had some injuries, and then thought, you know what, I need to join the real world. This athletics thing isn't really working out for me. So I went back to grad school, but I just really couldn't give it up. Tried again with javelin after the surgeries and everything, but just my heart wasn't there anymore. And I kept running into people that said, why don't you try bobsled? Why don't you try bobsled? And I thought, well, I gotta work. I'm 26 years old. My parents have been supporting me, and I need to actually grow up. And then my mom said, you know what, this is your shot. I was invited to come out to Lake Placid. Why don't you go out there, just try out for the team? So it was September of 2003. I went out there, and they said, well, you did all right. Why don't you now come out to Park City and, come out to team trials? And been on the team since then, worked out for me. So I just, want to thank my parents for the support, because obviously, you always believed in me. And thank you for that. And then I want to thank, all my former coaches, trainers, everybody who's always been there for me. And most importantly, Shauna, my partner. If you didn't believe in me, I wouldn't have that silver medal and all the accomplishments that we've had over the years. So thank you. Thank you all.
I think Valerie's an example of how spoiled we all are living where we live here on the peninsula. We just take Valerie and Archie and all the rest, we just take it all for granted. But if you put, I've often said, if you put the 240 people who are in our Hall of Fame, in this Peninsula Hall of Fame, if you put them in the middle of a Hall of Fame in Iowa or Wyoming or New Mexico, it would be a statewide group of excellence. And again, it's just amazing. When you look at the list, the full list is in your program. And you look at these people and you go, whoa, I didn't know she was here. I didn't realize that, but it's interesting. Peter Diepenbrock is our next inductee. Peter went to Burlingame High School and Menlo College. He has coached and played overseas. He coached in Denmark. Then he came back, he coached at Pinewood, and then he went to Palo Alto. He also coached at Kenyatta College. But at Palo Alto, he had some of his most interesting successes. I think the game that stands out, and one of the reasons he's here, and maybe he can even talk just a little bit about it, his Palo Alto team, now this is a public school in suburbia, a great public school, by the way. Palo Alto's legacy goes back as far as Sequoia's and San Mateo's, way back. But his team was a regular public school basketball team. And it was several years ago, in the middle of the 2000s, and they were very, very good. And they wound up playing for a state championship against Mater Dei High School of Anaheim. Now, if you know anything about Mater Dei is not a normal school. It's a gigantic co-ed Catholic school, about 1,600 boys and girls, and it's not normal. Their basketball program is like a small college program. And the team that Peter's team played was heavily favored. I mean, they were supposed to have no chance. But they did have a point guard who was pretty good. It turned out to be very good. In fact, Jeremy Lin plays for the Houston Rockets today. And Peter gets a modicum of credit for that because he didn't screw it up. He saw what he had and went with it. And that's a sign of great coaching. When you have great athletes, your job is not to screw it up. You know, don't put too many restrictions on these people. And he did a marvelous job. For me personally, that's one of the great upsets in the history of Peninsula boys basketball. Peter Diefenbach.
Jeremy was the most uncoachable kid of all time, I'll tell you. I don't know how this is working. It seems like we're taking a survey or whatever, but I agree that 3 minutes is not really enough time to do this. So I don't know, DJ, get ready. But you know, my wife's not impressed with a lot of things I do, but my ability to talk about myself, she's very impressed with. So I'll do my best here. But I just want to thank some people. My former assistant coach, Mark Decker, thank you very much for all your support. My junior high and high school classmate, Pat Shannon, thank you very much, Pat, for all your support. My high school coach, Doc Shepler, I'm sure you've all heard of Doc. All his state championships, and you know, the thing about Doc, it's funny because you might get the idea he happens to be coaching girls now, and he's coached boys for many years as well, and he seems like a nice guy. But it's funny, I mean, it just, for those that played for him know, it's like, I wasn't surprised when I talked to Doc, and we were talking about the Rutgers coach, Mike Rice, and Doc is watching all those clips, and Doc's like, I still don't see what the problem is. I don't see what he did wrong. Yeah, Ricochet Rabbit. I also want to thank, I come from a very large family. I'm one of 12. And my sister is here and her family. Thank you very much for all your support, Mary. Much appreciated. I also, just so happens that, you know, really I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for another person in the room that I owe a huge debt of gratitude. You know, it was when we're young kids, you know, you never know what direction you're going to go in, and you try different things. And for me, one significant event was when I was playing high school basketball. And, you know, I wasn't a very good player, but one game I happened to score 43 points. And, yeah, pretty good. But I want you to know that I could not have done that if it wasn't for Terry Stogner in that horseshit 2-3 zone that you play. So, Terry, thank you very much. I'm forever in your debt. On a serious note, I would. See, that's why I invite Mary. She's my best. She gives me my best laughs. But no, I'm very honored for this award. And, you know, it's funny because I've always been associated with basketball, and what I've learned the last several years, I have my 8-year-old son here who's starting to play sports, and I'm coaching his teams. And what I've learned is what I really enjoy much more than basketball is teaching. I just love to teach. I've been a PE teacher for 17 years, and you know, that's what, you know, it finally clicked in my head that yes, basketball's the vehicle that I've used, but what I really enjoy, doesn't matter what it is teaching and helping others. And I'm just very appreciative of this honor, and it's definitely going to motivate me more to go out and coach and teach and help young kids in the future. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You did very well. That was good. No hook. Our next inductee is Jabari Issa from San Mateo High School. When Jabari was in high school back 22 years ago, he played for Buzz Williams at San Mateo. Now, as you can see, he's a good-sized young man. He was that height in high school, not quite as broad, but a big kid, a very big kid. So you can imagine how a regular, normal-sized suburban high school kid might approach Jabari. For example, in his senior year in the Little Big Game against Burlingame, I do recall listening to a part of Burlingame's pregame talk on the sidelines, and one of their players said, "Is that the guy that I'm supposed to deal with today?" And the coach said, "Yeah, what's your problem?" And the kid says, "Easy for you to say." And yeah, he was a dominant force in high school and a great player at Washington University, drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, a very high draft choice, 6th round. Played how many years? Six years in the NFL?
4.
4? Okay. 4 years, that's about a normal career in the NFL, which is a man's league, as he will tell you. Jabari Issa.
Thanks, John, for putting me on the small mic, by the way, so. That's all right. First of all, I just want to thank folks at the Peninsula High School Sports Hall of Fame just for inducting me. It's a tremendous honor just be mentioned with the rest of these folks today and in the past. I want to thank Jessica in particular. I didn't really quite make it that easy for her for efforts, so my apologies for that, but thank you for all your hard work. I want to thank my parents just for their support, their love, just their work ethic, for teaching me their work ethic, and just the importance of grades, really, just because I could be as great as I want to be on the field, but without grades, I wouldn't go to the next level. I wouldn't be here, pretty much. So thank you for that. I want to thank my coaches, Coach Williams, Coach Andrews, Martin Billings. I didn't really play football till I got to high school, because back then with size, it was all by weight. So I would have been playing with people that were, for example, being in 4th grade, playing against 8th graders, and Miles was not going to have that. So they taught me about the very basics of the fundamentals of football and just teamwork and the importance of just having your teams back, because that's what football pretty much is. It's the ultimate team sport, I believe, just because without me doing my right assignment, my quarterback's going to get killed. So thank you for that. I want to thank Lucy for her famous brownies at the before every Thursday we'd go to Coach Williams' house and watch film and play pool, and Lucy would have those magical brownies out, well, great brownies out there. And just game day would be just fired up and ready to go. I want to thank my coach in University of Washington, Coach Hart. He instilled in me, just taught me how to go beyond my limits, where I thought my limit was, but his famous quote was, "You'll pass out before you die, so keep going." Where am I now? I want to thank my friends, my teammates, David Collins, Sean Galvin, Francis, Albert Tui Pelotu, Bill and Eric, just for when I didn't want to get up and go practice or go somewhere, they would keep me focused, tell me about the goal that we had in hand as far as winning games, for their support. I was very blessed to be around really great people. I'd like to thank the boosters, because in high school sports, you didn't really get too much funding, especially now, like nowadays, but just raising for uniforms, equipment, things that were important that you couldn't really do without. Finally, I just want to thank the opportunity just for playing sports in general. It's taught me so many things about life, myself, how to overcome adversity, and just it's just unfortunate that so many programs are getting cut nowadays, because that still translates to real life. So Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Jabari came down from the Seattle area tonight. We really appreciate it. We appreciate what you did at San Mateo High as well. As you all know, the demographics of the peninsula have changed dramatically over the last 2 generations. The faces of the county have changed. That's a good thing. Everything changes. Westmore High School might be a textbook case of how demographic changes change athletic programs. When Leo Biederman was at Westmore, Westmore had an outstanding football program. In fact, even before he got there, under their first coach, Pete Matese, Westmore was a powerhouse in the late 50s and early and mid 60s. But over time, the population changes, and today, Westmore does not have a football program. They have 1,800 students and a beautiful field. Leo was up there today, took a look at it, and they don't have a football program. They have other sports. They do a great job. But Leo is one of the last great linemen that ever went to Westmore. He went on to Cal, then he got drafted into the NFL. He played in the Canadian League. But you're the last of a breed, Leo Biederman.
Thank you, John, for those kind words. I just want to thank the committee to not only my nomination, but also the other nominees tonight and all the past nominees on the peninsula. We look at, there's some great names on there, and just to be associated with that is a great honor. I first have to start off and thank 2 people that have been gone for a while. 57 years ago, Gene and Susan took a 2-year-old sickly kid out of the Midwest and moved him to Daly City, California, because of an asthma problem that he had. And today I'm standing up here 57 years later because of that. My wife and I went by my old house today, and it sits right on the cliffs, overlooking the ocean there. And it hasn't changed in all these years. It's still foggy. But I can't get here without, you never get to one of these opportunities without teammates, coaches, supporters, and what have you. And I've been very fortunate and grateful to the people that I played ball with and who coached me and gave me the opportunities to advance my career. I played for Pete Matese, Tony Giamona, who's in this hall. I was very fortunate to go on and play with some great players and great coaches. I went to Berkeley. I played for Mike White. I was very fortunate to play with some of the greatest players in Cal history, the Chuck Muncies, the Wesley Walkers, the late Joe Roth, Steve Barkowski. From there, I was drafted into the Cleveland Browns. And I was very fortunate to play for a man named Sam Rutigliano, probably one of the most honest, truthful coach I ever played with. He was the only coach after I got cut in 1979. I went back to Cleveland through there, and he goes, "Leo, I made a mistake." How many coaches in the NFL tell you they make a mistake? He's the only one that I knew was. I went on to play with Dick Vermeil, Bill Walsh, played up in Canada, played in the USFL for John Ralston. But it's all those coaches, all those players that I played with has helped make me who I am today. You learn a lot of lessons playing ball. People ask me, what do you miss most? And I think we all, as athletes that sit in this room and have sat in this room and play ball, the one thing we miss is that camaraderie, that guy next to you. And that's what it's all about. It's not the money. It's about that guy next to you. He's got to rely on you. You got to rely on him. The honesty that you learn in sports, that coaches talk to you, and I've been called every name in the book, as we all have, a lot of us. But from those lessons, we go on. I played for 7 teams in the pros, 7 teams in 7 years, in 3 leagues in 2 countries. By the time I was 25 years old, I was fired 5 times. Fired. When you get cut, you're fired. In the NFL, that means see you later, pack your bags, don't let the door hit you in the ass as you're walking out. Well, it happened to me 5 times. What that taught you, though, is you learn to pick yourself up off the ground and go on. And that's what I've done today in my career. I've been in sales for 30 years, and then we all know in sales, there's more no's than there are yeses. So with that, I've learned great lessons from this game and all the opportunities I've had to play with this, and all the people I played with, all the supporters that have been there, and all the friends I've made throughout. I will always be a guy from Daly City. I will always be a guy from Cal, and I know this is a hard thing to say down in this Stanford area, but I'm very proud of that. And one last thank you, my best friend and my wife of 25 years, Sandy. Thank you.
Our next inductee is Paul Pickett from San Mateo High School. Paul Pickett, for a lot of us, exemplifies how size doesn't mean quite as much as a lot of sports fans believe. He follows in the footsteps of players like the late Charles Johnson, another member of our Hall of Fame who was 6 feet tall and played in the NBA. I'm sure you recall Charles very well.
Absolutely.
Paul Pickett played basketball much taller than he is. He was physical, he rebounded, he shot beautifully at San Mateo and St. Mary's College, where if you look at the record book at St. Mary's College, your name is all over the record book for career, for years. It's amazing. Free throw percentage, shooting percentage, career points. It goes on, and he did it while of average height, but tremendous quickness, toughness, and determination. A fine representative from his great high school in San Mateo, Paul Pickett.
Thank you very much, John. You know, in this community, I was very fortunate to grow up when I did. Plethora of athletes that were coming out of San Mateo County that were doing tremendous things. As a student of life, I paid attention to what others were doing to make them great. And they all had one common factor, and it was hard work. Doing things, working out when others were going out to Friday night parties. Saturday morning working out when others were just getting up at noon. I was already done with my workouts and shooting my 500 jumpers a day. I just thank God, number one, for putting me in the position that I've been in to share with every nationality that I can possibly imagine. And I thank my mom for her hard work and her journey in her life to just instruct me with the basic thing, to love everybody and to be kind to one another. And put in the work. You put in the work, you're going to get what's coming to you, no matter what it is. You have to believe in yourself and strive for it. It's not easy. Nothing is easy in life. You know, all of us up here who's been inducted tonight, I congratulate you. You're setting a precedence for a lot of people to come, even those before us. And we have to remember, there's some great people before us, and we have to take on the responsibility as human beings to continue to share that greatness with one another, no matter what it is. Tell that secret that's going to help that person get to where he needs to be. Don't be afraid to reach out and shake somebody's hand that doesn't look like you, because they have experience that you don't have. And we all need those experiences to continue to move forward in this nation. And I like to ask all of you, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in our country. And we need to bow our heads sometimes and just say thank you for where we are, because we're very fortunate people. I'd just like to say thank you to my brother Clyde for taking his time to come out and shoot with me and rebound with me when I know he didn't want to. I thank my family for putting up with me when I know they didn't have to. As young kids, we're kind of rambunctious at times. We think we know everything, but look around us. Look in this room. There's tremendous wisdom here, and we need to appreciate that and celebrate that, not just because we're athletes, because we're great people. And you need to celebrate that, okay? So I'd like to give everybody else a round of applause that's in here to celebrate everybody else that's in here, okay? When John first came and spoke to me, I said, okay, I appreciate this. This is wonderful, but I'm thinking right now, okay, Ashton Kutcher, you can come out now. Because I'm thinking this is crazy. This is a great experience, and I'm very humbled by this experience to be associated and thought in the likes of the great people that are around us. This kind of reminds me of like when David was selected in the Bible. He was herding sheep. Now look at what kind of person he has become, and he's become a king. We're all kings in our own rights. We're all kings and queens. There is no number two. We're all number ones. Don't forget that. And appreciate where you come from. I've had the opportunity to play against and with great players in high school. Peter, I love you, man. It's really good to see you. I love you, and I always will. And your coach as well. Burlingame, Mills, Aragon, every high school in this area has produced great athletes. But all those athletes were kind and loving and great people. That's the one thing I found in sports. It brought everybody together. There was no hatred. There was no, you can't, no, you're not with us. You're not part of this team. We're all part of the same team. So let's come together and celebrate and love each other. This is a great honor for all of us, not just the ones that inducted. It's for all of us. This is for the community, and this is a great community. So let's continue to celebrate our community. I love you, Jamie, and thank you for being a great daughter. I love you, Clyde. I love you, Pat. And Kat, thank you for being by my side, honey. I love you, too. Thanks, everybody, for coming and supporting us. I appreciate you.
Now, that's a class act right there. Paul Pickett. Our last inductee, and the last shall be first, in the words of someone, Terry Stogner from Carlmont High School in the PAL. Now, Terry, in some ways, is an aberration. This area we live in is very mobile, very fluid. New people come in here from all over the world. Silicon Valley is a melting pot. But some of us hang around for a very long time. I speak from some experience. I finished my 50th year working for Peninsula newspapers in January. Terry's been doing his thing longer than that. He was a fixture at Carlmont High School. He was a student, a player there. Then he coached there for almost 40 years. Then he moved on to become the commissioner of the Peninsula Athletic League. And I would say that during his time, the Peninsula Athletic League has made more strides forward than at any time in its history. First of all, girls' sports are a part and parcel of the whole enchilada now, which doubles the number of coaches and teams. He administers a league of 17 large public high schools and a whole bunch of private schools that are part-time members in certain sports. And in fact, one of those teams, Sacred Heart Prep of Atherton, a small Catholic school on Valparaiso, went to the state finals in football. of all things. That's never happened before, never. Oh, I take that back. I take that back. That's incorrect. 1926, San Mateo High School. So there was a small gap, between the Bearcats beating Covina 20 to nothing, thank you, and Sacred Heart Prep barely losing this past season. So Terry has administered a league that has just grown exponentially. The crowds are bigger, the revenues are bigger. It's amazing. So we are very pleased to induct him tonight, and he may have a few short words for us.
First of all, Paul, thank you for not bringing up the stats against Carlmont. I made a lot of careers. True story, 1967. I'm in my second year of teaching. I'm at Blackford High School in San Jose. My wife and I have been married for almost 2 years. I'm 23 years old. I just coached the Frost-Soft team to an undefeated season, and in my mind, I'm probably the hottest coaching prospect in the state of California at that time. I know this because Peter wasn't born yet. So I'm waiting around for the phone to ring because I just know the offers are going to start pouring in where I'm going to go coaching next. We're in San Jose so my wife can finish her teaching credential. And the phone does ring. And I come back into the room and my wife says, who was that? And I said, well, that was the athletic director of Carlmont High School. And she said, really? Now, we're both graduates of Carlmont, so it was of some interest to us that Carlmont would be interested. What'd you tell him? I said that I was mulling over many offers and that I was probably going to go to Prospect High School, which was just opening up a new school in Campbell District, and the vice principal at Blackford was going to go be the principal, and I was going to go with him. 23 years old, I was going to go ruin their school. It's a good thing I didn't go. Really? So what'd you tell him? I tell him, well, no, I don't think I'm interested in that job. Really? Now, most marriages could probably survive a couple reallys. The third one was really the charm, and in the fall of 1967, I'm at Carlmont High School. 2005, the phone rings again. I'm getting ready to retire, and I get an inquiry as to whether I would be interested in being the commissioner of the Peninsula Athletic League. I'm not real stupid. So I say, can I get back to you? And so I consult with my wife, and she tells me, yes, you're going to take that job. And so I have been doing this for the last 9 years. Now, we've broken a couple myths here. First of all, I didn't return to my alma mater because I wanted to, and there was a burning desire to coach at Carlmont High School. My wife wanted to live in San Carlos. I didn't take the commissioner's job because I had a wealth of expertise that I wished to share with all of the coaches and athletic directors in our league. I took it because my wife didn't want me hanging around the house. So with those two things in mind, do I get to keep the plaque? Okay, all right. I'd like to introduce my wife of 49 years next week. Judy, would you wave to everybody? Carlmont Homecoming Queen, 1962. Careful what you wish for. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I'd like to introduce my son, Mark. I was the athletic director of the Woodside Priory School in Portola Valley. Mark. His wife, Natasha. And my daughter, Megan, who supervises the school counselors in the Santa Barbara City County. Yeah. Got a group of teachers here from Carlmont High School, past and present. There was only 8 of them that we could find that even knew who the hell I was, so we, we invited them here tonight. And I've got a group of student athletes who were at Carlmont High School or close to when I first started there back in '67. And they're thrilled to be called student athletes because several of them are on Social Security at this time. So thank you. You are all a very, very big part of our lives. You were a topic of dinner conversations many times. My daughter was thrilled tonight to know that you all had different first names. She thought you were all named Damn Balkan or Damn Heck, and damn, you know. So this is really neat. A lot of things have changed. When I first started coaching, there was no girls' sports. There was no Title IX until 1972. There was no social media. Coaches didn't have to put up with the stuff they put up with now. If you wanted to hear about a ball game, you read it in the newspaper, and it was honestly reported. And there's not all that other stuff, negativity that's out there now. So there's just a lot of things that I can help the younger guys with, and I take great pride in the mentoring of the job of league commissioner. And Peter, again, I'm not here because of my coaching career. It's obviously because of my commissioner. So thank you.
Terry, thank you very much. He didn't want to tell you that after he left, Blackford was closed. Oh, and Woodside Priory. The last time I checked your website, tuition, books, fees, and room and board total was $52,000? Yeah, for boarding, right, it includes boarding.
That's all right. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
That's right.
A fine Stanford education. Thank you.
Okay, John, don't go away, please. Before we move on to our auction and our raffle, I hope you're as impressed as I've been tonight with this amazing group of inductees. Let's give them a rousing round of applause.